All right. We have, of course, two partner entities. They're going to be sharing some information with us. First one is the Athens Homeless Coalition, and I think Melinda Lord is going to introduce Michael Bean, who will then introduce some staff that he's growing in the time that he's on last. Go ahead, Melinda.
So this is the Athens Homeless Coalition presentation, annual performance presentation. Executive Director Michael Bean will go through where the Homeless Coalition came from, where it is, and where it's going. And I will hand it over to Michael.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you all for the opportunity to talk about the Athens Homeless Coalition and the work that we're doing. Today is March 11th. So these are the things I'll be covering today. Really, in a nutshell, the purpose of the Athens Homeless Coalition is to remove barriers and improve access for people experiencing homelessness, individuals and families, to get into long-term, stable, high-quality housing. At the same time, I'm also interested in prevention, in preventing people from being evicted or removed from their homes and entering homelessness. Homeless Coalition's mission is to lead, coordinate, and strengthen our community's efforts to reduce, prevent, and respond to the challenges of homelessness. There are a lot of service providers and a lot of organizations that work on an individual and family level, providing direct care. We're here to address the community level and system level issues that are factors in this. We do have an active board. Our board is a working board. We have working committees that get a lot of work done and also support our staff. At the time that I submitted this slide, we had 9 current members. Since then, we had a board meeting in which additional members were elected, and now I think we're at maximum capacity. Our board is fully staffed.
How many is that?
I believe it's 15. So I'd like to introduce my staff that's here today. I'm Michael. I've been working with the coalition for just about 8 months. Claire is here with us. She is our community data coordinator. Her role is to coordinate and run our coordinated entry program, which I'll speak about in a few minutes, but also to aggregate and synthesize all of the different data sources that are in Athens to better understand the scale and scope of homelessness. Each agency keeps their own data and their own records, but there's not a whole lot of sharing and community level understanding of homelessness besides our point in time. Claire's been with us for about 3 months. Behind me is Michael Moss. He has been with us for just about a month. He's our community engagement coordinator. His role is to work with people with a lived experience of homelessness and engage and empower those individuals to guide our work in a meaningful way, and also to amplify their voices, to share not just with the coalition, but also with some of the people in this room, and share sort of what their experiences are, navigating the systems, day-to-day perspectives, and recommendations. We're funded by ARPA through December of 2026. You can see our drawdown here. We expect to be spending more money in the coming months. Now that we're fully staffed, finally, that will draw down. You can see what some of our expenses have been over the last year. Additional expenses will be office space, and also this year we plan to kick off our flexible housing fund, which I'll speak to in a moment, and that will spend some of our funds to directly assist individuals and families. So now I'll speak about a coordinated entry program. Coordinated entry is a system to assess individuals and families experiencing homelessness for what programs they're eligible for, their level of vulnerability and some of their needs, to more efficiently reroute them and refer them to the appropriate services, the appropriate housing programs. So up till now, Athens and all of Georgia and really most of the country has been using a coordinated entry system. It's mandatory by HUD. We've been using a system that's been in existence since the 1990s. In a lot of ways, it's outdated. It's not trauma-informed. There's some equity issues associated with the existing tool and the existing system. So we're completely overhauling and upgrading our coordinated entry system. And so Claire and one of our board members has been working really diligently to create a new, from the ground up, customized coordinated entry tool and system specific to Athens, our needs, and what resources we have available. The new system is more efficient, it's more equitable, and also user-friendly. And that third bullet's really important because what we want to do is expand our reach to engage people experiencing homelessness beyond just the typical traditional HUD-funded homeless service providers, to include schools, hospitals, clinics, police department, sheriff's office, faith-based organizations. Upgrading this coordinated entry system does improve the continuum of care competitiveness, which helps our COC get more funds. So the tool is finished, and we've also envisioned a case staffing conference, and we have that scheduled, and we have that ready to go. We just want to get legal review to make sure that we're following all the laws and regulations, and that we are being mindful and legal when it comes to working with vulnerable populations and collecting information on vulnerable. In August, after I'd been with the coalition for just a couple months, I applied for a state program called the Georgia Supportive Housing Institute. Permanent supportive housing is considered the gold standard solution for homelessness, particularly for individuals and families who are the most vulnerable, have the highest level of needs, including people with disabilities, veterans, people with severe and persistent mental illness. It's a two-tiered approach to provide quality, affordable housing as needed, and also customized, person-centered, community-based supportive services. So in filling out that application, I put together a team of local community members, local agencies, to go through this institute and learn all the ins and outs of planning, developing, and operating permanent supportive housing. So our team is in the process of pre-development, which means applying for permits and funding with the hope to provide permanent supportive housing in addition to affordable housing. So the plan that we have in mind is 100% affordable housing with a significant portion dedicated to permanent supportive housing for people, like individuals and families experiencing homelessness. And you can see some of the specs, just sketches that have been provided for what this might look like. So I'd like to move on to our flexible housing fund. Athens Homeless Coalition has been budgeted for a fund to directly provide assistance to individuals and families who are either experiencing homelessness and have been accepted or have identified available housing, but have a financial barrier to obtaining that housing. So what this is a fund, it's quick, it's efficient, and it will provide those funds directly to the vendor to help people get over that financial hurdle. Not only for people experiencing homelessness who are close to entering housing or entering the housing program, but also to individuals and families who are in danger of losing their housing and entering homelessness. So we're going through policies and procedures and working with our board to set up a mechanism to quickly transfer funds from that fund to the individuals who need it, and to do it quickly. I don't know if you've heard this phrase, nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. It's the idea of someone like me coming along and planning programs and steering the ship without incorporating the individuals that we're going to serve. And so that's really one of our watchwords of the Athens Homeless Coalition, is to involve people with the lived experience of homelessness. And that's something we take very seriously. I think you hear that a lot, lived experience a lot. It's kind of a token or a check on a checklist, but it's something that really guides all of the work that we do. Even before I was hired, the board formed a lived experience committee who held listening sessions at different locations with people experiencing homelessness or people who previously experienced homelessness, for social support, to share their stories and challenges that they're facing, to give recommendations for agencies and for policies that will benefit them, And so just last year, that committee conducted 22 listening sessions. Dr. Adams, who chairs that committee, put together a summary report of all of the information and recommendations and notes that were taken into themes. And so that summary report's available. It was presented at the State of Homelessness event that was just a couple months ago. Also in this effort, I mentioned Michael Moss, who hired a community engagement coordinator to elevate our efforts to engage people with lived experience. So that will be his role, not only continuing and taking over the listening sessions, but also working deeply in the community to work with individuals and families to help steer the ship of the Athens Homeless Coalition and amplify those voices. So here I've listed some of the future activities. You can see the first three are kind of summaries from previous slides. We plan to launch our coordinated entry program probably within the next month. We're just waiting on getting legal approval in order to do that. But everything else is in place. We have a pilot location to launch it, and we also have case staffing conferences already set up and scheduled to share that information with the service provider so individuals and families can be routed to eligible and available housing opportunities in real time. Like I mentioned, we plan to launch our flexible housing fund sometime mid-year this year, advance the lived experience program. And here I haven't mentioned, but these are things that we're going to focus on in the next year. One is to implement an outreach strategy. So I mentioned our outreach among people experiencing homelessness, but we also want to launch an outreach program of our housed neighbors, people in our community who are housed, and hear their perspectives and hear their thoughts about homelessness and answer any questions or dispel any myths about homelessness that people in our house community might have. So that's something that is one of our top priorities. Also, as I mentioned, we're dedicated to increasing the amount of permanent supportive housing, because that's really the evidence-based, most effective response to people who are chronically homeless or who face kind of the highest level of challenges. And something else that we're focusing on, and everything I've listed today is informed by the strategic plan to reduce and prevent homelessness. So that's really serving as a framework for a lot of what we're doing here. But to strengthen our faith-based network, there are a lot of potential opportunities, and there are a lot of congregations that are doing really good work independently. And we think there's an opportunity to share information, share success stories and lessons learned, and also kind of elevate what the faith-based community is doing. So I know I moved through those quickly. That is just a sample of the projects that we're working on, but I wanted to set time aside to answer any questions that anyone might have. This is my contact information. When I first came on board, I reached out to the mayor, to all of you, for a meeting, and that invitation stands. I've had really great conversations with many of you, but I'm absolutely available to meet, answer any questions, get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, thank you, man. So, one thing I did not see, Michael, any partnerships or coordination with the other nonprofits that provide homelessness. Because I thought one of the things that was going to come out of the coalition was trying to bring all these partners together, work together in unity, because some things I see, we got some other organizations doing some same things. So has there been any talk or any discussions about bringing other organizations around the table and working in conjunction together to deal with some things that we're dealing with? And I think somebody mentioned it earlier, it seems like our homeless population is growing. So I'm trying to figure out, again, I know you just not get started, that may be something down the road, but I kind of like to see, I haven't got a strategic plan, but I'm trying to see where you see this going in the future.
Sure. I'll answer your questions one at a time. I'll hear two questions. Facilitating partnerships and increasing collaboration among service providers is one of our top priorities. I didn't include it in this presentation just for time's sake, but it is one of our main tenets. Partnership is one of our values and in our 5 values. So Yes, absolutely. Part of the role that we do. We work closely with the Continuum of Care, which is the network of providers. So we work with shelters, healthcare providers, different service providers, the police department, to help partnerships. And actually, Claire did a really successful data collection where we created a survey and also held a focus group with service providers specifically to ask them what kind of partnerships are they most interested in. Because it's not for me to understand where the gaps are. We went right to the source and asked, what kind of agencies do you wish to partnership in? How successful do you think your partnerships are? How do you see the Athens Homeless Coalition supporting future partnerships? So that wasn't mentioned, but I assure you that's something we take very seriously. Your second question about homelessness and about the increase of homelessness. Yes, homelessness has increased across the country, including Athens, Georgia, just going on the information that we have. As you all know, homelessness is a very complex issue, and it's difficult to answer your question in a minute or two. I will say this, there are a lot of factors, including market factors and system factors, that make it more and more challenging to acquire housing or to keep housing. So we all know a lot of people are having a hard time staying in housing. So since you asked a simple question, to put it succinctly, what's happening in Athens and other places is that, and let me say this, the service providers are doing incredible work. And I don't know if everyone here sees or is aware of the day-to-day successes and the housing successes and the families, the children and individuals that do get full-time housing. And a lot of times with the supportive services that they need, or get into recovery for substance. So they're doing amazing work. What's happening is, in Athens and a lot of communities, people are entering homelessness faster than people are entering. And that's what's happening. And it's a direct result of housing markets. So that is my short and succinct answer to that very difficult question.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Melissa, Nobile, Carol.
Yeah, you talk about supportive housing being one of your top goals, and from what I understand, that's like, the one way to ensure that homeless folks find housing and stay. Can you elaborate on that definition? Talk about the kind of services that are added in that supportive housing?
Sure. First, since you asked for a definition, in terms of permanent supportive housing, that permanent is a key component also, in that when someone qualifies for a program like this, there isn't a threat about, you need to get a job in this amount of time, or you get kicked out, or you need to make a certain income, or you get kicked out. This is permanent supportive housing, with the rent is based on that person's level of income, whether it is a full-time position, a part-time position, whether it is Social Security benefits, or whether it's zero. So that threat is not hanging over someone's head. When you ask about the services, it's a really wide array and it's person-centered. So what will happen what does happen in that model is that someone works with a case manager to assess what their needs might be. It might include physical health services to get back on someone's medication or have a procedure done that they've been putting off for a long time. It might be mental health services to help someone in an outpatient setting or an inpatient setting. It might be substance abuse treatment if that's one of the challenges. Employment services, supportive employment, transportation, childcare, whatever those challenges that person is facing to help them stabilize and improve their situation. That's
Just a couple of things earlier. Did you go to your lesson last night? The launch 4 years of entry, has that launched already, or have they launched?
Everything is in place for that program. So the assessment tool that I mentioned that we created is ready to go. It's been fully tested and is ready to launch. The case staffing conferences, which is where we take that information and work with service providers to help house eligible people into the correct programs, is already in place. What we're waiting for, we think is an important step, is to have legal review to make sure that we're following laws and policies, to make sure that we are being mindful and legal about how we collect this information, protect this information, and use it. So that's literally all we're waiting for. We already have a pilot program in place with a willing partner that's going to pilot this program.
And I know when we went to Birmingham, we went to their homeless coalition, and they had a coordinated system. Is it going to be similar? And my question to that is, a person can go from city to city, and you still would be able to know if they came from wherever, if they were already in the system. Is that system going to include anything like that?
The system will not have that capacity. And I think the reason, if I was to guess, would be based on private protections on how information is collected and how information is shared. So because we're talking about a vulnerable population, there are protections in place about states sharing individuals' information with other states. And currently there's not a nationwide program that would track individuals. Athens does have a program for anyone who enters a shelter or goes to advantage for help with a housing program, gets entered into a database. But this is slightly different than that. What you probably attended was a case staffing conference in Birmingham, and that's one of the models that we're following. Birmingham.
It was a very,
That was just a visit. Okay. So, so there are two sides to it. One is the assessment and collecting this information, and the other is how do we get everybody together in a room, go through a list of individuals, and find out who has availability and who's eligible.
if I'm wrong in what I think I remember, I think it would be worth looking into what Birmingham is doing, if that's okay. I'm sure somebody knows because I might be wrong, but I think that is significant because a lot of people that do come here, they're going to be somewhere else. So you'll have so if you would look into that to see if I'm suggesting something.
No, I love your suggestion. I agree with you 100%. We've already worked with Birmingham, and I also mentioned Chattanooga for 2 to 4 years ahead of us in some of these processes.
Where's your money coming for your flexible housing program?
Park up.
That's part. So that has a tendency to be almost gone, and at least 2026.
Yeah, it has to end by 2026.
So are there plans on how that's going to be refinanced after 2026, or are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, our whole program, the coalition, is entirely funded by ARPA. So obviously one of our top priorities is sustainability and funding after December of 2026 to include our current programs and our current payroll and including the trust house.
So that's on your radar at the end of it all, right?
Absolutely, and even though that's still almost 2 years away, we're already in the process of identifying grants and other funding opportunities.
And my last question is on the Housing Institute that you talked about, the Georgia Supportive Housing Institute. Is this the one, Ms. Lloyd made it real clear that we're getting two different projects mixed up. Is this the Peter and Vine application?
Well, the Supportive Housing Institute was just that. It is a training to learn about supportive housing. So that is what I applied for and what we entered. However, yes, Peter and Vine is the location that the developer is applying.
And that would be under the developed supportive housing.
The Athens Homeless Coalition is dedicated to advocating for housing for individuals and families experiencing homelessness. So that includes permanent supportive housing. So when I say developed supportive housing, we are intent on identifying opportunities for housing for the homeless.
But that's my point. This could be an example. I'm not, no one is bad or not. I'm just saying, the application that has been submitted is Peter and Vine, and if it is funded and we move forward, it would be what you would say is developed supportive housing.
Yes, a strong portion, a significant portion of that development will be dedicated to permanent supportive housing services, with the remainder of the units being affordable between 30 and 80% AMI.
And so, how many units are we talking about?
I believe it's 60.
And I guess, again, where I'm still struggling with is, well, I'm gonna leave that and I'll let somebody else pick it up, but I do think there is some confusion in the community that needs to be cleared up, because this is not what folk were expecting. And, first of all, this is also not what people even knew. That's the first thing. But the other thing is, Denise said, I think Tiffany had some of the same conversation. It was supposed, we thought it was like for single families, mothers, and children and elderly. And then I understand that you are going to have, this is going to be, one of the buildings is going to be 3 stories, but no elevator. And so if there's no elevator, you're not talking about single moms and elderly folks. And that's the minimum. So every time we do something in the affordability range, it seems like the do the minimum that they have to do for us. This is that bothers me that we're talking about doing just what is regulated, what the minimum is, instead of having high quality like we would like to see in some of the other areas that people come to us and ask us to vote for. So I do have a problem with that, the minimum, when we talk about vulnerable. The vulnerable needs the best.
Commissioner, just in terms of Michael's role, Michael as an advocate for finding places for permanent supportive housing has an opportunity for a component of a larger project to be permanent supportive housing. But Mike, I don't believe you're a carpenter or a builder or a home designer. And so just in terms of who does what, he is working to find some of the places in a larger development as permanent supportive housing. Just so it's clear, who does what in terms of.
No, I'm not giving it to you personally, Michael. I just know I just found out who the developer was that is working with you. So it's not to you at all. It is who you're working with and the minimum requirements for the most vulnerable. That's all. So please don't take this personally.
I don't at all, and I'd love to speak to your question. I just want to say that I hear you, and I heard clapping in the back. I hear you. I hear you. My role has been to advocate for, like you said, for the best for this community. I think there are concessions and compromises as part of any deal. However, I've pushed hard to advocate for the most amenities, the highest quality, and if it's not with this developer and another developer can provide that, then I'm 100% on board with that. The elevator issue, I think, is 100% valid. We argue about elevators and about the absence of elevators and how are people going to access that to the 3rd floor. Without getting into too much detail, I know their plan is what they call a split level, which is 3 stories, but on a hill, meaning that over here there are steps to get up to that 2nd story, but if you park on the other side of it, it's on that hill, so there are no steps. So it means 1 flight of stairs to get to the 3rd floor in that building. And that's the best way I can explain it. And like Mayor Garrett said, I'm not a developer, but I'm doing my best to share it. But I feel my role in this as an advocate is to push for the highest level of amenities and the highest quality of care and quality of materials and aesthetics and feeling of community and trauma-informed architecture, all of those things. So that's something that I take very seriously. As part of this project, working with Advanced Behavioral Health, one of our partners actually surveyed people who are currently in permanent supportive housing programs, asking them what their priorities are, what amenities are they most interested in, and we brought that information back and shared it with them.
I just got to ask that question. Really, what I know, I just want to make sure my colleagues know. I hear everything, not everything, but I hear a lot. And some of my colleagues, because we're in different circles, don't hear what I hear. So really, this is a benefit for my fellow colleagues that may not even know about this project. So no, this is no attack on you whatsoever. This is just making sure I'm sharing the information. So when we do have to vote on stuff, all of us will know the same thing. That's it.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the questions, and I welcome tough questions, and it so happens that these arguments are the same ones that we've been talking about. Okay.
And then Tiffany, and then Mark.
Yeah, other little questions. We're collecting data from the service providers, picking up on what Commissioner Fisher was talking about. Do you, because you guys are an umbrella to sort of see what's going on with the service providers, do you have a, like a collecting mechanism of data, just like how many people served, and that you get, like everyone is saying, we'll get all our monthly reports and tell you how many people were in here. So are you acting as a collector for that information?
Yes, and currently that system does not exist other than the point in time count, and other than people who are serviced by certain providers and their information entered in the database system. But as I mentioned earlier, we have a full-time position, Claire, who's devoted specifically to that.
So just, and this is just information, does the coalition meet with service providers on a sort of advisory council, monthly, every other month? Is there some regular meeting with service providers?
Yes, we meet both with the Continuum of Care. That group meets, the general body meets quarterly. We attend those meetings. The Continuum of Care board meets monthly. All three of us attend each of those meetings, give reports, share information. Someone says an opportunity comes up that fits into the wheelhouse of the Homeless Coalition, where it's about network or systems level questions, then we work together to spearhead those.
Great. Can you send us a summary report from the people with lived experience? That would be great. Third thing, coordinated entry. You said, right, I hear this phrase all the time, trauma informed. You said the present collection system isn't able to collect information, trauma-informed information.
Yeah.
Well, I have no idea. But the new system will. What does that actually mean?
Well, I will say that our new tool is significantly shorter than the existing one.
Yeah.
And I think when the original tool has a long acronym called the ISPDAT was created, I think it was to collect large amounts of information, and it results in someone in front of a case manager, probably one of the most vulnerable times in their life, being peppered with questions about their criminal history and about their substance use and about their involvement in institutions. And so we have designed this to reduce and minimize that part of the experience for the participant.
It's helpful. The next thing is, again, following up on what someone else asked about the funding, is after ARPA funding, if the next time you come to us or at some point to give us some update about the strategy for that, we just finished a long session on other kind of funding that's going to social service, nonprofit agencies, and this comes up again and again and again. And it's like, then all of a sudden it's time for funding, And so we're already short on one of the funding places, which is probably where you all can continue to ask for funding, but we already had, 300% more requests than we had money on that. So please keep us up to date on that there. And then the last thing I'm going to ask with the Georgia Supportive Housing Institute, because I do not understand this at all. Someone from your board showed me something a couple of weeks ago, but I was like trying to figure out where this stuff fit into everything else. Who is actually applying for this? Who are the players in this? I don't really understand this. Where are we in the stage of this? I mean, since it's out there in the public and I keep seeing it mentioned on social media, but I don't really understand who the players are and what the timeline is and the different steps.
Sure. For the Supportive Housing Institute, I applied for a training series
Right,
put
I
on
know
by the
that
state.
part, right.
There were some requirements to apply as a team that you need certain representatives on that team. Service provider, our service provider is Advantage Behavioral Health. If I mean our team in the training institute. The developer is Woda Cooper, who I know his name has been mentioned, and
What's the name?
Woda Cooper, W-O-D-A.
Oh, that's where the WODA come from before.
That's right, the full name
That was
of
an
the,
abbreviation.
the full name of the company is Woda Cooper.
Okay, yeah,
So that was the developer that we were matched up with for the Institute.
yeah.
Our team representatives also include Athens Housing Authority, a small business owner, and a community member who serves on our lived experience committee.
So that's the team.
That's our team.
What are the steps here? Because this, everything takes a long time. This is out there, like, where are we in this? So you went through the Institute, that gave you some advantage, what it was, because I was confused by the whole thing. But where are you in this process? What are the next steps?
Well, to be clear, and I think Mayor Gertz touched on this, is that the developer is in the process of applying, I believe, for funds and for whatever approval they need from the state.
That's the low-income housing tax credit
But it's
process.
the developer, him or her, themselves, I should say, who's applying for that low income, the LICA funding.
That's true, but as Commissioner Taylor mentioned, we're included as a community partner on that application. And Advantage Behavioral Health, I believe, will be included as the service provider on that application, just to give a couple examples.
And so that, even before this goes to anything, I'm sure there'd have to be something on the local level and approvals, or no? No? This would be, what?
Total state.
It's total state,
level.
it's all state.
It's all DCA.
Okay, so they would make a decision on this. And what's the timeline on that process? Do we know?
Applications in May, I would assume before the end of the year, they would be making those announcements.
And do they have a whole process for, like a transparent process for deciding that? Does anyone?
Yeah, you can go on the DCA website for the low-income housing tax credit, and the application is available, all that information as far as the requirement, what type of applications they accept, and past awards are also listed, programs. So Commissioner Taylor, you were asking about that list. We'll just pull it from DCA and provide it, because it's their list of who they award.
And this is presented as, like, in terms of zoning use, it's like by right, using what, I mean.
That's right.
It is by right. So it wouldn't have to have any approval zoning wise. Great. Thank you.
Tim,
Carol, thank you so much for asking that question, because I think that was the question that we all wanted to know. And by the way, this was not a transparent, process, because we found out about this through, community talk. And when reviewing the application, it was said that there was community input, which there was not community input, for one. And for two, because Advantage is your partner, they receive SPLOST funds as well as ARPA funds as well to build what you're saying is supportive permanent housing, which has not broken ground yet. So did you ask Evan before you got with Athens Housing Authority, which is one of our largest housing partner, who is also contributing to our homeless problem because they're evicting families. So I just want to, put that out there for the record. I also just,
I'm sorry, may I answer your question?
please do.
Advantage Behavioral Health currently operates a permanent supportive housing program. It is a scattered program, meaning that individuals in different locations receive permanent supportive housing. This would be an additional program in a central location that requires additional staff and additional, operations.
And can I say why, Michael? is because a lot of the people that Advantage serve has severe problems to where the complex no longer wants to deal with them, even when they're put into communities with family and children, which is what Peter and Vine is. As a mother of 5 children who lives right across the street from that development, do you know how nervous I am to have my 5 children who walk to and from the Earhart Community Center to potentially come into contact with someone who is dealing with a mental episode? Was that even taken into consideration when you chose this property? Because I know from Housing Authority, you know, they're gonna get in where they fit in, and so is Evan, which is why I feel like they didn't come with you today, because they knew you were gonna be on hot seat for this property. So you might wanna check your partners. Also, I know you do you, Michael. I appreciate what you're doing with the Homeless Coalition, because I remember going to the first meeting, but I have to tell you, my guy, I'm a little disheartened because I feel like it was not transparent. I feel like this property was chosen because it is a predominantly Black neighborhood, and because we want to move the undesirables to a place where other undesirables reside, which is why we can't get a grocery store, which is why Housing Authority pushes back when we ask them to fix their units, which is why I get pushed back when I ask for single housing for moms to transfer out of public housing into owning their own homes. So this is just a me and you. You don't have to, you know, you can ignore everybody else. This is just me time. But as the representative, and I know that, you know, because of the lines, it's now Melissa's issue, but it's my community. And I just wanted you to know from a community member, which you probably would have known had you reached out to the community before you submitted your application, that this is just disheartening. We do not support it. Not that we don't support your work. We don't support this project. We don't support the process in which it took, the non-transparency, and also the audacity to just say, take it. Because a lot of us may not say, just take it, but those are the actions that you're telling my residents, that we just have to take it.
I hear you. I think that's the point. I think you're right, and I understand your concerns 100%. I'll say it, may I respond?
Please.
On a couple notes. One is that there's certain eligibility requirements to enter a program like this. So individuals who are deemed dangerous or violent history will not be eligible for something like that. So I don't expect that to be as part of your neighborhood. But I understand your concerns. I have a family and I have children too, so I understand what you're saying 100%. I would also mention that a lot of times people push back on housing projects like this, saying, I don't want those people in my neighborhood, or I don't want those people around my family. Well, these individuals are already in our neighborhoods. They're just unhoused and they sleep outdoors. So I don't think this is. I don't feel like this is bringing them to your neighborhood. I definitely understand your concern. I don't see any evidence that that site was selected for that reason. There were a lot of. I had nothing to do with selecting that site, but I would imagine there were a lot of factors, including availability and land ownership and those kind of factors. But I'm happy to have this discussion, and I'm more than happy to talk to you more about this and your constituents.
And I mean, Commissioner, just as the landowner, it's the housing authority that have to do those.
I understand that, I'm not gonna. But Michael, we do see it. We see homelessness. If you go up a little further, up Vine Street, there's a whole homeless population. What we are not new to is homelessness on the east side. We see it, our family members, especially my family members. That's what's so great about being on the commission as a born and raised Athenian, is that a lot of stuff isn't pulled over my eyes because I see the work of Advantage, because I have family members who are clients of Advantage. I also serve a family of 11 who I'm on my phone back and forth because I'm trying to find them beds because Advantage got them a place to stay. So as an elected official, I'm not new to it. I'm actually a child who went from hotel to hotel because we were once evicted as well. So I'm also a person with lived experience. just let this moving forward be the notion that we're just not going to sit and take what this county or what smaller groups have to throw on us just because they feel like they're doing what's right in their heart at the expense of my constituents. And again, you should have brought Honey and Ed with you so they could share this hot seat with you. But you know, I appreciate you, Michael.
I mean, I just want to say that those individuals weren't invited. I had no idea to bring other people, so I did not do that. I lived in Athens for 25 years, so I live here too. The Homeless Coalition, my job is to advocate and provide housing to people. Not at the expense of our community. I think all these factors should be weighed, and I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here speaking for your constituents and for your neighbors. So I think that's an important part of the conversation.
Thank you.
Well, it's my understanding that the Department of Community Affairs has a program of funding availability that is specifically for supportive housing. Are you aware of that? No, as far as the program that this is being applied to is specifically geared towards is supportive housing. That's what I've been told, and that's why members of some of the folks involved with this went through the supportive housing institute. So there's this chunk of property that the Athens Housing Authority has had for decades, particularly for affordable housing, and it's just sitting there not getting developed. But there is a funding opportunity for that development through this supportive housing.
I feel like,
And right now it's just a concept. You can't even begin the application process without the drawings that we see. It's a concept. The application has submission in May.
That would be in here.
Next we're wanting to say, well, this will come back and forth. To be real, it doesn't come back and forth. Because this is the housing authority's problem. And the housing authority is leasing, from what I understand, the property to the developer. I also understand that the developer is going to be managing the staff. So it has nothing technically to do with this local government. It's out of our hands. And what Commissioner Taylor is saying is that because it's I know who went to Atlanta for the presentation, and nobody that went is from East Athens. So that also means nobody was consulted from East Athens. And Ms. Claudia Dorsey is right in front of this development. She's gonna wake up one morning and don't know what just happened because you didn't include this vote. And I don't want to sound like we do not support supportive housing, because that would be very contradictory. And all of us got history on those. That is, it's just a process, and we keep getting the process messed up. That's what the argument is about, or concerned. So with that being said, Michael, again, I'm going to tell you, it's not about you personally, it's about not knowing this was going on at the 11th hour. That's what this is. And my thought is that, I don't know, the intent of this application is supportive housing, basically. That's the intent, basically. But that's not what was ever. And because there was this whole mix up about this collided with the revitalization thing. That's what got us here. And the lines were changed for the revitalization from the meeting that I was at, which included my district. Nobody even told me that. So it's one of those freak accidents, but here you are right now. So I guess what folks want to know is what's your next step after you know now there's some concerns.
To be clear, I'm not the developer on this project. I think I've made clear what my role is on this project. And I know there's a concern for the permanent supportive housing component of this project. But to be clear, there are 60, I believe, units where maybe 12 are designated as permanent supportive housing. The rest is low-income housing, workforce housing for teachers and nurses and, kid workers who work downtown. So that's something else that brings to the table. Like I said, I'm a part of this community, and I live here, and depending on the degree of the leverage of the Athens Homeless Coalition, I will do what I can to make this community the best community, at the same time advocating for the population that I advocate for. I know the standards and community input process is part of this process. I think that's later in the process, because I think all they're doing is applying for funding at this stage, but I can't speak to that. But I know community input is a part of this process and will be a part of the process.
Thank you.
Jared?
Look, there was reference to the application, and I know in that letter we received, there was reference to another community group that was, mentioned maybe as input everything received. Is that application publicly available to share so that we can see what's been applied for? I mean, it sounds like it might be out there, but I don't know on that. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that. What the application for the application for this development, is that publicly available?
I don't know if the state puts that out there, or
Yeah.
if you have to do an open records request to the state for that information.
Okay.
I don't know that I've ever looked on their website and seen submitted applications before.
But one could, I mean, it seems like there was mention of something that was in the application, so I'm wondering if it's out there. A lot of times when we receive grant applications, I guess my question is, one, can we see an application so I understand what's being asked for? But two, in terms of the permanent housing that you just mentioned, earlier in the presentation, I thought you said there was 100% affordable housing with significant permanent supportive housing, which made me, and I had one percentage in here, I didn't ask it before, but now you just moved 12 out of, how many sentences? So to me, that seems like, it seems like it's more, I thought it was gonna be like, when you said significant permanent supportive housing, I thought the number was more like 50, 60, and then a few extra units for regular affordable housing. Which, do we know what it is?
I believe that the numbers I said were correct, which is 60 units with roughly 12 support. I mean, I can find that information for you, but it's not far from those numbers.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I'm Athens Homeless Coalition, so I would advocate for the maximum amount of supportive housing, because we're trying to house people off the streets. That's what my organization is dedicated to. However, like all things, it is a compromise and a negotiation on what is included and what generates revenue and how this income to be. So what kind of concessions
Right. No, I'm not
are
even
we
judging.
willing to make for something like this?
I'm not judging, I just, when you mentioned significant before, I thought that meant more like 75% was permanent supportive housing at 25.
Yeah, I didn't mean to mislead you, but my background is in public health, but significant means something very specific, so I did not mean to
Right.
mislead.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael or his team? Michael, there, Mike.
Thanks for all that work you do.
Well, I apologize, I know neighborhood leaders are next, and then Bonnie is going to talk about this.